Okay. Okay. I am Kim Heffernan. I am the Professional Development Coordinator in the College of Business. And here with us at the LinkedIn workshop, which is a session that's part of our overall professional development and summer speaker series that we're offering this summer. A new program, just given the current environment and things changing with internships and work environments, our professional development team at the university in the College of Business just thought it was a really unique time for us to offer some programming for students to kind of help in these times. So we're really, really excited to be offering this LinkedIn workshop as today with one of our longtime friends and partners here. I think you're really going to enjoy this session. I'll introduce our speaker here in just a second, but first, before we do that, just some good housekeeping items. I think everyone's pretty familiar with WebEx at this point, but just some good housekeeping. If you could just keep yourself on mute if you're not speaking or don't have a question, that just helps us mitigate some background noise. We would love to see you. So if you feel comfortable, turn on those cameras. We would love to see who we have with us in the room. We have a really great crowd. I was just mentioning our faculty and other colleagues on the professional development team have been really great about supporting the series. And so we're just really pleased to have all of you here. We encourage you, this will be an interactive session, really encourage you to use that chat function. I will keep an eye on that, John, so you don't have to do double duty, and I'll just interject if any questions come up. I want this to be an engaging session. And then you can also, just as a heads up, change the view of your screen. There's a little kind of icon in the top right side, and you can kind of do a floating panel view or a speaker view. And so, you can kind of play with that on your side to get it to a place that you're comfortable looking at. So those are just some good housekeeping items. We are really excited to have John Fay with us here today, digital marketing manager at EY. Again, spoken at the university quite a bit and has just been a really great partner to us. And I think you're really going to enjoy this workshop that he has to offer. John, you've been at EY for over 15 years?
Correct.
Okay, great. So he's got some really great experiences to offer. So with that, John, I will turn it over to you and I will quit talking now.
Thanks, Kimberly. Appreciate it. Appreciate, Jacob, you having me invited. Again, it's always great to, I always like coming on campus and being in person, but it's great that through these challenging times, we can still get together via all the great technology we have. So really appreciate that we're able to do that. Let me see. Obviously it's easier when I can really see everybody's faces as we're going through all of the content. It's so much easier to get feedback if I'm going in the right direction or going in the wrong direction. So please, as Kim stated, use the chat window. She'll help to monitor that for us and moderate it to get your questions asked. So please don't let this be me I'm talking all the time. Please have it as interactive as if we were together in a classroom. That would it'll make it easier and better for all of us. So our agenda today, what we'll be covering, you probably already know this, why you should be active on LinkedIn, but I'll just help make that personal business case for you. Obviously, from a search engine optimization of you or me as John Fay, you want to be able to control what people see. And we'll talk about that a little. How you can become a LinkedIn superstar, how you can stop those pop-ups from telling you to update this part of your profile or that part of your profile by doing it all after we've done this together. Some tips on building your network, and then talk a little bit about what you should be posting on your LinkedIn profile to help you become, build your personal brand. And how you'll get your followers to like and to share the content that you're posting. And then finally, we're going to try a learning exercise. I've been there on site. It's a lot easier to do this as a group exercise. But the gist of it is that based on the content that I share and that we talk about, we're then going to ask you to review your profiles. And come up with some suggestions on what you're doing really well and where you can make some changes and then share that with the group. So hopefully that will work out in a virtual environment.
And John, let's just say, this is even more important, and just thank you for being here, because this is probably arguably even more important now, right? I mean, we've offered LinkedIn workshops in the past, but I think this is even more important as students have face-to-face options in terms of networking and getting and their personal brand. I just think, the uniqueness of this session right now in the current environment is just that it's even more important that students are utilizing this platform. I hope you would agree.
Great. Yep, I totally agree. I will just mention, I do hear some background noise, so if everybody can just make sure that you're on mute if you're not talking, that would be great. Thank you. All right, so just a little about me. I won't read all of this because you can obviously see it yourself. I'm a Christmas baby. I'm from Long Island, New York. I just saw on Facebook over the weekend that I graduated from high school 40 years ago, which doesn't seem possible, but I guess it's true because it was on Facebook. I am quite addicted to Pokemon Go. I've actually posted an article on LinkedIn as part of my profile about Pokemon Go and marketing. That was a couple of years ago when I first started. I've been doing social media at EY since 2012, so 8 years. There's where we can network together on LinkedIn and Twitter. And then just a couple of quotes that I've found have been good for me in the past. One's kind of new, but if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. I've always found that as really good advice from Mark Twain. And then more recently from Hamilton, talk less and smile more. So hopefully I'll be able to smile sometimes during this while you all are talking, so that I don't have to do all the talking. And then as has been mentioned, I'm a regular participant in University of Akron marketing Twitter chats and have spoken on campus a couple of times to y'all. So happy to be back. Just about EY, we rebranded to EY a couple of years ago, more formally known as Ernst & Young. Our true name of the company in the US is Ernst & Young LLP, globally headquartered in London, over 280,000 employees. We make lots of money. We're spread out across the world, 150 countries, and interestingly enough, founded in 1903 in Cleveland by the Arthur Young and I forget, Arthur Young, I'll forget it, I don't remember, but all right, Ernst & Ernst. From a social media perspective, we have over 400 authorized accounts at EY, which is kind of incredible, but they do cover our different sectors. So you think of a firm like ours, we do tax work, we do audit, we do advisory. So each of those has their own accounts. We have a general EY news account, we have a press account, and the accounts that I work on, I support our Alliance go-to-market campaigns through an Alliance Showcase page on LinkedIn and at EY_alliances on Twitter. And you can see our company page. I had updated the presentation from a couple of years ago, and we went from like 2.5 million followers to over 4.2 million followers on LinkedIn. And we've seen really good growth on the accounts that I manage as well. So why LinkedIn? So LinkedIn has probably 700,000 members now, 200,000 probably in the US. So it is the one place for really the professionals to go to network and to connect as you would on any of the other social media platforms. So Fortune 500 most used social media platform. EY, there's 270,000 EY people on LinkedIn, 400,000 alumni. So if you think about a way for us to be able to connect with our people and our alumni, who are very important to us in terms of, from a sales perspective, there's a real good reason for a company like EY and any other company to be on LinkedIn. So I mentioned earlier, one of the things with LinkedIn is, its strength in showing up in search results. So, and you want to control that. One of the things we talk about when we do training with our partners and directors is you want to control what people see about you. The first thing they should see is your LinkedIn profile. You don't want them seeing any other thing about you, really. So having a good optimized profile on LinkedIn will allow you to help control what people see about you. It allows you to stay connected with the hundreds, probably more, professionals that you know. I looked, I think I'm connected to 500 people, which is kind of amazing. Many of who I have worked with over the years, but it's kind of amazing how you build your network. It's the current version of a Rolodex in terms of your ability to connect with people and know how to get in touch with them really easily. And then the other thing is the ability to get introductions to really thousands of people that you don't know yet. So those second degree or third degree people who, maybe you're looking for a job and you're looking on, one of your friends' LinkedIn page and you see that there's someone who works at a company that you're looking to find a job at or want to do business with. The ability to get that introduction from your connection to them is really powerful. So, as I mentioned, showing up professionally in search results, 9 out of 10 times, if you have a good LinkedIn profile, the first thing people that are going to see about you is your LinkedIn profile, not your Twitter profile, not Facebook or any of that, but truly it would be your LinkedIn profile. And you want to be able to control what people see about you. So making contact with those professionals you don't know, you have 500 connections. There's 250, in theory, 250,000 second degree connections, and over 1 million third degree connections that you can link up with. Any questions so far? Kimberly, anybody?
I don't see any yet.
Okay.
Again, just to ask any questions. I think it's going well.
Yeah, I know that the beginning is kind of high level stuff, so hopefully we're getting into a little more meat that people will have some questions about. All right, so optimizing your LinkedIn profile. So LinkedIn isn't really about who you work for, where you went to school, or what your job title is. It's really about the things that you and only you can bring to your job. So I don't know how many of you have opened yourselves up to recruiters. I kind of keep it open just as an interesting detail. Everybody, I'm very happy at my job, the disclaimer. But it's kind of interesting the jobs that get recommended for me. And I've taken that in some cases and tweaked my profile to weed out some of the more general or not specific jobs that I want to. So thinking about the keywords in your profile, which we'll get into in a little bit, is really important and something that I can't stress enough. One of the things after we have this session, and I've given you all these great tidbits, and others on the phone on the call have shared their tidbits as well. Hopefully you'll have some things that you want to change on your profile. One of the things that I recommend and others recommend is there's an ability to turn off your profile edit updates. So for example, you're changing your summary or you're adding in all of those jobs. If you have it in the off position, then you don't have to worry about your network being updated that you have a new job. Because all of a sudden people will be congratulating you on a job that you had 3 years ago versus your current activity. So once you've fully updated your profile, certainly go ahead and turn this off so that if you do add a new job or something like that, they will see that and be able to connect with you. So one of the things that has been identified is having a good LinkedIn profile picture. They say that you're 21 times more likely to be viewed on LinkedIn if you have a profile picture. And honestly, I would agree with that. You mean and say it's lazy, but it's a little lazy if you don't have a good profile picture. You don't have to book a professional photographer, but there are certainly different events or even, do your own selfie or have someone take a picture of you, being aware of a couple of things. Just be aware of your surroundings. You want to make sure that it's a professional environment. Use natural light. Use the best camera that's available to you, whether that's a newer, newer phone or an actual digital camera. Think about the angle. You don't want it to be some kind of weird angle. Think about what you're wearing. This is professional. So for the most part, you want to dress professionally, dress for the job above you. Don't just don't center yourself, and don't do a cliche selfie. So just make sure that you're thinking about this in a professional way. Unless of course you're in in an industry that's more creative, then maybe it can be a little off on that. Do a little more, but for the most part, you want this to be a professional photograph. This is one of those things that I'm not very good at because I'm not creative enough to come up with a fancy title about what I do. But they say that people don't really care that you're a marketing director. They care about what it is that you can do to help them fix their problems and business issues. So you'll see in these two examples, a PR professional, brand developer, go-to-market strategist, content creator versus owner of a digital agency. And then, kind of the same thing with Amy, creative marketer, brand extender, things like that. So think about the industry-specific keywords that describe your role in a more holistic way than just marketing director. Within your LinkedIn profile, you want to demonstrate your expertise and experience. So, take the opportunity. I know many of you don't have, at this point, a lot of job experience, but you may certainly have internships or related jobs that you can include in here that show that you have had the ability to work, maybe get promoted, get some accolades and things like that. So don't be afraid of putting that here within your experience. And then obviously, as you obtain jobs and move through the ranks or change positions, be sure to include that activity within your profile. So the summary is really where you're going to talk about your current role and experience. And this is where a lot of the search engine optimization will come in. So you'll want to make sure that within this summary, that you're really talking about what you have accomplished and what you've done. And of course, remember all of those keywords within your specific industry or within the job that you've done to make sure that it's very searchable. And then the other tip here is to write in the first person. I think in the beginning, everybody took it as their kind of online bio. And it was like, well, John does this and John does that. But it's really, what have you done? So I've done this. I'm passionate about partnering with my clients, things like that, speaking in the first person. And this summary really can be a conversation starter, just because you can learn a lot about a person if they have a really good summary. I used to do some LinkedIn training for our partners, and I was looking at some of their profiles ahead of time to, number one, have an understanding of where I could focus my training on with them, but number two, just to maybe come up with some examples on how it worked. And one of the partners had gone to Ohio State University, and I saw in his interest was the Ohio State marching band. And it was kind of interesting because I had, a number of years ago, my son was in the marching band, and we had been to Ohio State for a marching band competition. So I used that information from that person's profile as a conversation starter and as a kind of an example of how I didn't know anything about this person. I had never met him before. but I could, say, hey, I saw you were in the Ohio State marching band. We were just there for my son was in marching. And it turned out to be a really good example for them to understand kind of the power of learning something personal about somebody that you wouldn't have been able to find way. And the only way that people can learn that about you is if you're sharing that as well. So think of it kind of a two-way street. You can learn things about each other. That you can learn about someone and they can learn about you. Yes, and I see Kimberly just put a little message up there. Please, I feel like I'm talking a lot. As I said in the beginning, I'm a New Yorker, so I'm probably talking too fast. So please ask some questions so I can slow down a little.
John, I'll just ask a question to kind of get things rolling, if you don't mind. You were talking about, adding keywords on your profile. Where do you suggest that students, for the job that you want, where do you suggest students start with those keywords? Like, should they look at job descriptions for jobs they might want, or do they look at other people's LinkedIn profiles that have titles that they may be like? Where do you suggest that they start looking for those keywords to include?
Yeah, great question. Both of what you said is absolutely correct. So if you know somebody in the industry that has a job that you're interested in, look at what they've done on their LinkedIn profile to see how they've framed themselves in that position. But certainly, job descriptions are a great way as well. In the old days, I don't even know how many resumes people need to do anymore, but they were scanned, and you were either a yes or no based on keyword matches. And it's kind of the way it is now on LinkedIn. They're doing a scan of your profile and they're able to see where you match. And that helps not only if you apply using your LinkedIn profile, but also to get those job recommendations coming to you. So yeah, certainly, leverage those job descriptions and others in the industry.
Perfect, thanks.
And I'm going to write that down because I'm going to add that to the presentation for next time, so thank you. So this is a good time for somebody to ask a question as I'm writing. Or maybe I should have music in the background when I'm
I know. I've said that these platforms need to have kind of like intro music or like elevator during these times. We just had a comment from Aaron Liggett, who's one of our coordinators of career services, that the conversation starter is similar to what you would use in your elevator pitch. So it's just kind of a way to get the conversation started. So that was a good comment from Aaron. And then, so thank you for that. Vishali, there's a question that came in as one of our current students. So what's the best way to get connected on LinkedIn to a person in the company that I'm interested? We will come to that. So that's a good segue then.
hold that thought. Yeah, the elevator pitch is interesting. So I've been Ernst & Young for 15 years, right? So I haven't, while I've had different jobs, I haven't really had to think about my resume or what I would say about myself, right? So while I keep my LinkedIn profile up to date, I haven't really needed it too much in terms of that. But yeah, that elevator pitch, what you're going to say in a real interview, should really mirror in some aspects, the summary, right? I would think that they would go hand in hand. So I wrote that down too. So thank you, Aaron, for that. So that's the great thing about these things is, we learn from each other, in terms of, I have the experience working on LinkedIn, helping train partners, but you guys are really close to this, so it's good, and things change all the time. LinkedIn changes all the time as well. So thank you. So one of the other things just to think about, you can customize your LinkedIn URL as well. So, I'm kind of lucky. I've been in LinkedIn for a long time. So, my LinkedIn profile is John Fay. So that's great. Again, little things like that do help with the search engine optimization of your LinkedIn profile. So make a note to make a change to that. So connecting with people. So if you haven't been on LinkedIn in a long time or are just starting, there are a couple of different things you can do. You can import your contacts. It will then do a search and match. You can look up somebody from an email, and then one of the nice things every time you go into LinkedIn is it will give you recommendations on people that you should be connected with. So that's a great way to expand your network within the people that you know. Not yet in those companies that you're targeting, but certainly in terms of people that you know and getting your network together. So connecting with people that you want to know. So a lot of times it's because you have met somebody in a business environment, or you have gone to a conference or an event where you've met somebody. And that's a great way to then add those people to your network. Just remember, the best way to connect with people if you're doing it as someone who you don't know is the mobile app isn't very good with the connections. At least it wasn't. I don't know if they've changed that recently, but the best way to do the connections is via your desktop or laptop. It allows you to put in a personal message. So for example, if you want to connect with someone, it gives you a number of options. We've done business together, we're friends, we're colleagues, we met at an event. Be sure to personalize that note, especially if it's maybe someone you met at a conference where you're meeting, I won't say hundreds of people, but you have the opportunity to meet a lot of people, and a lot of people have met, shook hands, maybe not now, we're not shaking hands, but have met and connected and then want to be connected on LinkedIn. So it's always nice to put a good message in, who you are and why you want to be connected. So for example, I have a new boss that started on Monday, and as part of the announcement of her joining our team, her boss sent us a link to her LinkedIn profile. So I made sure that while she probably didn't know my name when that announcement came out, I told her who I was, that I was part of the team, and I was looking forward to working with her. And it gave me an up right there because I'm not sure how many other people did that on our team, but I made sure that I was reaching out to her early and letting her know that if she had any questions to reach out to me. It was good to be connected. So I'm not sure if we talk about so people that you want to be connected, and I'm open to suggestions from everybody as well. So connecting with someone at a company that you're potentially interested in working at. The first thing I would say is to follow that company on LinkedIn. So if you're interested in working at Ernst & Young, follow the company, because you'll get a flavor of the type of things that they're posting about. You get to learn a little bit about their culture. They'll be sharing things about their products, their services, what they do, what things they're doing in and out of work within the community. So that's a great way to do it. And if you see a company maybe sharing content from someone who is in a department or an area that you're working with, it would certainly be appropriate to like and comment on that person's post, to give them, to start that conversation. And then maybe after you've seen their posts after a while, you could try to get connected with that person. There's also different levels. You can follow people and you can be connected with them. So following, you would see their kind of thought leadership, what they're sharing, versus being connected and being able to see their followers and more detailed information about them. Does anybody have an example of where they have used LinkedIn to connect with someone at a company where they were interested in working at, or just kind of almost a cold call connection on LinkedIn to get connected with someone?
And feel free to hop off mute if you want to share, if anyone wants to kind of share an example.
Hey, John, this is Jacob Farrar. So I actually have an example where not the job that I have now at the university, but the job previous, I was cold called through
Okay.
LinkedIn.
Yep.
My profile was spotted by a headhunter recruiter, and they reached out to me directly to see if I was interested in changing jobs. So it was 100% based on my LinkedIn. I would have not known about the position, not known about the organization. Well, I knew the organization, but that they were looking for someone.
Sure.
But it's 100% based on what was in my LinkedIn profile and some keywords that they were looking for this position.
Yeah, great.
So
Yeah, thank
yeah.
you.
And the only downside is my work email was the email address associated with it, so that position went to my work email. So it was kind of weird for to get that notice. But yeah, other than that, I ended up getting the job, and 100% based on LinkedIn. Would not have known anything about it had it not been for my LinkedIn profile.
That's when you forward it immediately to your personal email.
and delete. Yep, exactly. Yep.
Well, it's interesting. So I'm dating myself, but when I first joined Facebook, it was based on being, it was one of those things where you had to have a university email or a company email that they had kind of signed up with Facebook to do that. So my Facebook kind of connection email is my work email, but when I did sign up for LinkedIn, I did use my Gmail account. So maybe pro point based on Jacob getting LinkedIn job invitations on his work email is make sure you change that to your personal email or your school email for a while. Great. Yeah, it's interesting in terms of the connections. So I mentioned that I've done this for some of our partners, and one of the questions that they've had in the past is, so I'm a partner, I'm trying to use this as a business development tool, but members of my team, mostly junior members of my team, want to be connected with me. And how should I handle that? And it's kind of an interesting question. And it was a really good conversation because, certainly there were some people who were very open, some partners that were very open to connecting with their whole team and, if they're sharing information, making sure that, their team was aware of it. But they then on the flip side didn't want to get all of this other content that would be going through their stream from now, probably 100 more people connecting. So you just have to be cognizant of the fact that, as you become connected, that means you are sharing things back and forth. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Because they will see what you're posting, and LinkedIn is pretty much professional stuff anyway. But every once in a while, you see something that you're like, oh, why would I post that? But I think for the most part, like the partners were saying, they weren't going to have their junior staff connected because they did want to keep it as a business development tool. But it's really a personal choice for everybody in terms of how you're leveraging it. I don't leverage, I'm not in a sales position, so I don't leverage it that way. So I connect with everybody pretty much because, I just, if I'm sharing information or want to have that person in my network for maybe at a point where I'm looking for a job, there's nothing wrong with having more than less. All right, so as I mentioned, follow interesting and prospective companies. If you're interested in a specific industry, so let's say home healthcare, obviously Johnson & Johnson would be one of those companies that you want to follow. If you're into internet companies and stuff like that, you know the different companies that you're interested in. So make it something where you're going to follow those companies, because then you will see the type of content that they're posting, what's new in the industry, because you can always use that industry information in your interviews. And then connecting with other people. Before I go on, we used to talk about groups a lot in LinkedIn. Groups were kind of interesting in terms of, common, around digital marketing, for example, or social media marketing, stuff like that. And I had joined a couple of groups, and unfortunately, I'm sure there are some good groups out there, but the groups tended to be more of a, hey, I want to sell this product, and since we're in a group together, I can kind of send you a message where I wouldn't have been able to before and see your contacts. So just be careful in terms of the groups that you're following. They can be spammy at times, but if you find a good one, then obviously it's great to stick with that if you're going to be with like-minded people. But I haven't seen that much about groups recently, but just kind of a side note.
John, we did have a question from a participant, and saying this in the future, just let us know. It was from Martin Thompson. If you want to transition from seeking work in one industry to another, what are some good ways to change up your profile that fits without completely upending your profile and losing relevant information? So this might be relevant if, even if for, current student, if you change majors, or if they have some work experience, if they're changing industries, what would you suggest in terms of kind of maybe flipping those keywords without losing some of the things that you
So the good news is, while some of the keywords may be industry specific, so I spent 20 years in banking, and then I went to a accounting and consulting firm, and it was 15 years ago. I guess it was pre-LinkedIn. But what my boss told me, because we had an interesting conversation after the fact, because I said, why did you pick me? I have none of this experience. He said, well, you had transferable skills. So those transferable skills was, I was going from a project management and a customer service role to a project management role. So while I had never done project management at a consulting or an accounting firm, I'd done project management for 10 years at a bank. And those skills that you have as a project manager, or as a digital marketer, or as a marketer, or communications major, they're basically the same. There may be some industry-specific rules, but those keywords within your profile should kind of transfer, unless you're looking to do something totally different. Hopefully that makes sense. But I think it does. Yeah, it's really, the skills that you have should be industry agnostic. They should transfer across.
And I think that's a good point too for for students who may be transitioning from that part-time job, or maybe it was even full-time. Let's say you work at Swenson's. I think it is too all about those transferable skills. So a lot of our students are super humble, and they'll say, I just did this, that, and it's like, well, there are transferable skills with those that are really valuable too. So I think even when students are thinking about those part-time jobs that they may have had early in college or even in high school, thinking about those transferable skills in terms of the jobs that you might want, I think it's applicable to that too.
Yep. Yeah, certainly. There's customer service. Customer service is so important regardless of what your job is, right? It's all about the people skills. You've been involved in clubs and groups at school. You're participating in sessions like this. Think about how you can leverage that in terms of, you were president of a group, or you were on a committee in a group, and what skills that you had to make those groups successful, and leverage that within your profile. You can spin away, right? I mean, obviously you don't want to say any untruths, but within all of our jobs, we probably do things that we don't even think about in terms of managing our time, working remotely, right? You now have a new skill, having just completed your or completing or in college, working remotely, knowing how to use Zoom and meeting and Teams and stuff like that. Those are certainly things that, if you don't have a lot of other experience, that you can include to do that. I went from a person-to-person industry in banking to one of the first people I worked with was in Sweden. I mean, so I had to learn really quickly how to leverage those online presence and instant messaging and stuff like that to build relationships. So don't be afraid to include that, because it's going to be very important, especially going forward, to employers knowing that you have had experience working remotely. So think about what's going on in our current environment and how you can leverage some of the skills that you've learned in a new job. So content and community. So once you've got your profile optimized, you want to start sharing stuff with your community, right? I mean, it's like any other social media channel. It's just business related or business applicable. So if you're reading an article that's maybe part of the industry that you're in, or you see just an interesting article about marketing, don't be afraid to share that link on your LinkedIn page. Just make sure that you provide kind of some insight as to why someone should then read that. There's lots of great headlines on articles, but give one or two examples of maybe something that you learned from that content that would make it interesting for people to then click on it and comment and like. So the basics. You can within your network you can like posts. That's pretty basic, right? We're all really good at liking stuff. You can like and share. That's kind of the next step. And then as you become more comfortable, like, share, and even comment on posts. And then one of the things to think about in terms of not only your profile, but building your online brand and networking is set up a regular cadence of going onto LinkedIn to share content, to accept connections, and to look through your timeline and like, share, or like and share and comment on posts from people in your network. Seeing that someone has liked your content is great, but if you see that they comment on it, that's that takes it to the next level. So think about how you can be additive to someone else's post by adding comments as well. So liking is good, but it's easy, right? So think about how you can add some value to those posts by commenting. So this is pretty basic, but it's really easy to share an article on LinkedIn. You copy a URL and start writing and include the URL, and in most cases, some good metadata and some images will come up with those URLs. Most modern websites have all of that built in. So hopefully, as you're sharing stuff, it'll come up and look good. There's nothing wrong with I do this all the time from a work perspective. Not all of the content we share has imagery. We have some stock pictures that we use or have access to just give some visual interest to it. So if you see that it's a very generic image that's showing up, there's nothing wrong with adding a relevant image to kind of spruce it up. I see that a lot around events where we're at an event and supporting an event, and the event websites are honestly kind of horrible in terms of their social shareability. So a lot of cases we'll add something in. WebEx, honestly, WebExes are not that great either about sharing the URL and things like WebExes and Skypes and stuff like that. They don't always have a good image associated with it. So a lot of times we'll add imagery, and there's obviously nothing wrong with doing that. In terms of, so we have the ability to share a link, but you can also do short form posts and updates, and think of this as kind of your ability to have a professional blog on LinkedIn. So you can as I mentioned, if you've thought about blogging, LinkedIn is about a subject. LinkedIn is a great place to start because it's it's free, it's easy to use, and would then get shared with your entire network. Which I jumped ahead of myself. So these are those kind of the updates where you're going to post a LinkedIn, a link for a URL, where you have the ability to, that first one on the left, that's where it's linked to a brand site where they have beautiful imagery. link to the videos, whether on YouTube, can be shared to photos, and different content that has kind of nice visuals. And then the LinkedIn long form post, as I mentioned, is this is where you're really the blogging opportunity on LinkedIn, and it's really a good way to kind of check out the waters to see if it's something that you're interested, writing some articles and getting feedback from your followers on what you're writing, being thought of as a thought leader, building your brand, writing these articles can be very helpful towards that. And then, as I said, it's certainly as you're going through and following people, it's really nice to be able to share and like and comment. And these are just a couple of visuals where people have shared others' articles and others' content, putting some comments in addition. And Kimberly, as I told you, I turned off my phone and everything, so I don't know what time it is. How am I doing on time?
So it's 1:40. We got 12 more minutes.
Okay, let's move a little faster because I do want to get to the exercise. Staying active through notifications. Just make sure that as you see people you'll see these pop up when you log in. Congratulate people, say some nice comments. It's again easy to just click on the like, but if you click in on the say congrats, you have the ability to add some personal comments. Thought leadership, I think we've talked about. It's really easy from different websites to share that content directly. Most websites today have that ability to do that. So think about it and make sure you add some comments to add value to why people should be reading that. Let's skip what's going on in the news. You guys can read that later. LinkedIn at conferences and events, obviously, a great way to get connected with people. So a lot of times there'll be a hashtag that you can even follow on LinkedIn. So think about that and connect and maintain those new connections virtually post the event. And then just to kind of some follow-up, the key takeaways, optimize your profiles. Think about the keywords that are in your profiles. Make sure you have a nice, your profile picture. I didn't talk about it. It's always nice to have an updated the background picture. Everybody has that blue one when they start. Find something that is either industry related or maybe a picture of downtown Akron or something like that. That's a nice picture that can add some visual fun to your profile. Plan your strategy. What do you want to be known for and why? What is your personal brand? I love the comment about the elevator pitch in terms of your summary. Who are you and why would people want to connect with you and or potentially think about you as a hire? Think about your cadence. What's your engagement strategy going to be like to stay active on LinkedIn? Plan any content that you're doing. Maybe you're going to post, a blog every Friday. Think about that schedule. Do all of that, and then review your work. Check the metrics. See who's following you. See who's liking your posts, and use them to kind of think about what you would do in the future. All right. So we had this actually as a group exercise when I was there in person. But for this learning exercise, think about, based on what we've just talked about, some of the tips that hopefully I've shared that have been helpful for you, take a look at your LinkedIn profile. And then as you finish that review, I know our time is kind of short, but think about and maybe post into the chat what you think are two of the best features of your profile. And then what would be really helpful for me is, what are the two features that we've talked about that you now think that it would be worthwhile to update? So if you can just take a couple of minutes to do that, and then share it within the group chat, that would be great. And then Kimberly, I'm not sure how we want to kind of talk about those.
Sure. I think individuals, I think they could even just take themselves off the mute if that's easier.
Yeah, great. Yep.
Just individually. So hopefully, is there someone in the group who'd be brave enough to kind of reflect on their own LinkedIn? You don't want to hear mine. You've heard me enough. Any of the other staff.
Kim, I'll be brave. Kim, I'll be brave. This is Jacob again.
I didn't want to put you guys on the spot, but I was like, someone.
And this is one of the features that I love about LinkedIn, specifically where you can put content in your profile of your experience. So, for example, I've been interviewed on a couple of different things, so podcasts or whatever, and you can put links to some of that content right there within your profile. Now, I don't know how searchable that is, but I think that's one thing great that I always encourage students to do is as they write, maybe white papers for assignments, or they do something that's of multimedia nature, you can put that in your profile. And I always encourage them to do that. So that's kind of one thing. The one thing that I need to do better is kind of just cull through my experience and kind of take those things that aren't as relevant anymore. I think that's something that we'll set it and forget it, right? We'll copy our job description from when we were hired and then just keep it there. I just celebrated 7 years at the university. I'm sure I could probably go through here and take some stuff out that isn't as relevant anymore. But I think that's the one thing I know I could always work on. But yeah, those are kind of my two bits.
Yeah, and I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I just want to thank everybody who's participating. Who's participated today. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. We should continue this conversation as long as we can, but I did want to thank everybody before they started logging off for the opportunity to be here, and I appreciate being here. And look forward to hopefully next year, Jacob, we can do this on site, and I'm a much better in-person person than I am on a video camera person.
John, you've done fantastic.
Thank you.
You've been great. So
to your point, did I just turn it? The point. This is going to be. They're going to be sharing this, right? So I'll be able to add this to my LinkedIn profile as well.
There you go. Exactly. So I'll just interject here for just a quick minute. Thanks I'll give some sincere thanks here just in 1 second. But for those of you who maybe need class credit for this, here is the QR code that you can scan. You can simply just hold your phone up to the QR code. If you have the suitable app, you can do so within the app. If you do not have suitable on your phone yet, you can just hold your phone's camera up to the QR code, and it will pop you over to suitable. You can log in with your Akron login credentials. So, I just want to give sincere thanks to everyone for attending, to my colleague, Jacob Farrar, who connected us with John, and then just most of all for John, for you being here. This, as I mentioned, is just really pertinent right now. And I think, some of the advice that you offered will help just really elevate these students' LinkedIn profiles, which is really important right now. Yep. And this whole series just wouldn't be possible without our business partners. And we just thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome. And please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I don't mind having lots of followers. I think it's cool. So
that's a good key takeaways. Any of you who are coming to these sessions, make sure that you're connecting with these the speakers. We say career ready and connected. Well, the connected is really important piece of that, and so it's just as important as the content is making the connection. So that's really good advice, is to make the connection. For those of you, hopefully, who are attending this, hopefully you'll come and attend next week. This continues throughout July, but next week on July 1st, we have Tina Meyer-Hawks from Smucker, and she will be talking on the topic of willingness to take a side road. So hopefully you'll continue to join us in future sessions. So thanks again to everyone. I think we're right here at the end. John, anything else that you want to, I don't know if I'm missing anything else from the chat, just a lot of thanks in the chat.
Great.
People plan to update their profiles.
No, thank you. The one thing I would, always good to get the other side of the feedback. So if there's something that you would have liked to have learned that we didn't talk about today, please share that with me, because Jacob has my number, so I know we'll be doing this again. So it'd be really great to know what maybe was on your mind that we didn't cover that we could cover in future presentations. So I'd appreciate that feedback as well.
Perfect. That sounds great. All right. Well, with that, we'll close here just with a thank you again, and hope to see everyone next week.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, John.
Bye.